Hi guys, Samantha from Jessama Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you a fun project using leaves and polymer clay. So this is going to be similar to the previous project I did with leaves that I did a few months back. I'll provide a link to that in the description below. But essentially today we're going to be doing some mica powders and with a little bit of resin instead of white polymer clay and pastels. So I've got some leaves over here. I've got 2 mint leaves, which are roughly the same size, and pick the one that you like the best. I like this one the best. And also another option is a sage leaf. So these are all herbs that you could probably get from the supermarket if you don't have them growing in your garden. Then you're also going to need some black polymer clay. I'm using Primo today, but you can use just about any brand you want. And you want to run this out to about 1.5 millimeters thick, like so. Then grab a piece of plain printing paper and you'll put that under your sheet of polymer clay, and then you'll take another sheet and you're just going to burnish this so it's nice and flat and the back has a nice subtle matte finish to it, so it's all nice and neat, ready to go. Okay, and I'll just peel that up. You can see we have a nice finish on there. Then take whichever leaf you want and start from one end and begin pressing it into the clay. You want to press pretty firmly because you want to get those veins in. So you want the top of the leaf facing up and the bottom of the leaf sitting in the clay, because that's essentially where the best veins are. They're always on the back of the leaf, you can see here. And same with the sage. The sage's got a nice front, but the back is so much better. Okay, then once you've got pretty well pressed in, burnish it in as well. And there we are. Got a nice leaf that's going to create some nice veining. And I'm going to do the exact same for the sage. And we're going to be cutting out exactly around the leaf, so you don't need to leave any margins between the leaves. We're going to be using the leaf as our shape. There we go. Keep in mind you can use any leaves that have a good back texture, but I'm using these because you can easily get hold of them. Okay. Now we'll use a craft knife to trim those out. Okay, and now this one's fairly straightforward. There are no jagged edges. With the mint leaf it's a little bit more tricky. You don't need an exact outline, you just need something pretty similar to the leaf. So I'm not trimming out those jagged insides, but I am following the outside of the leaf. And you'll just continue to trim the whole way around each of these leaves. There, now they are trimmed out. So now what we're going to do is we're going to lift up our excess clay and just move that out the way. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to press on the sides of these leaves. And what that's going to do is it's going to take a sharp edge and it's going to just bevel it slightly so that it has a better finish. So instead of it sticking straight up and being a rather unpleasant wall, it's now a much more smooth, soft finish. And you'll do that on the other side. And you're not trying to squish the clay out from under the leaf, you're just trying to take the clay that is already under the leaf and you're just manipulating it so that it is beveled. Okay, and the stems I will probably trim off, so I'm not going to worry about that. Okay, and now if you see any edges that have deviated from the leaf quite a bit, you can always go back in, trim those off and then repress. So I'm going to do that because we've got a few edges that are not quite right. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is, now you want to decide whether you want to keep the stems or not. If you don't, then all you're going to do is you're just going to take your blade, very gently cut that off. You can keep the stems, it's just I don't think it's going to be very strong or strong enough to support the pendant. So all you do is you then press again, trim away any excess, and you've still got a well finished piece. There we go. Okay, now the tricky bit is going to be to just lift up these leaves. So you want to gently take your blade, and I generally grab it by the stem over here. Yeah. Lift that up. And then you want to go through one of the veins to lift this up, because it means that you do less damage with your blade and you don't end up nicking it. Just be very gentle. And then once you've done this, you can colour it. And I'm going to be using pastels, mica powder on the one, and I'm going to be using Lumiere paints on the other, so you can see the difference. But first you want to get off this leaf, because we want to be antiquing this with either mica powder or Lumiere paint while it is wet. You could use the Lumiere paint once it's baked, but the mica powder you can't use once it is baked because it just won't stick. So just make sure that you remove all of the excess bits and pieces. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is, because I don't want to get any excess paint or mica powder on the opposite leaf, I'm just going to separate that. And now I'm going to twist this around so you can see. Hopefully you'll be able to catch that texture on there. I know it's black and it's difficult to see. You'll see once we've got the paint or mica powder on. But I just want you to see. Hopefully you can see that. There we go. Okay. And then you want to select some mica powders. And these are some that I have from my Etsy store. But any will work. Today I'm going to be going with some nice green colours. However, if you are watching this in fall, keep in mind that you can also use reds and golds and oranges and all sorts of other colours if you want. And even if you're watching this in winter, have some fun, paint it, colour it with some blue mica powders. Play around and have some fun. There you go. Okay, and I'm going to start from the top and work my way down. I'm going to take some nice dark green. I'm going to brush it on, and you're not just going to brush it on, you're going to burnish it in. So that means rubbing your brush over the surface quite vigorously. And this is a very simple project. It's nice, easy jewellery that you could make for a market pretty easily. It's great for gifts. Very simple, very fun to make. You could even do it with your grandchildren or children, because it's very simple. And I'm just going to carry on colouring, essentially, until I am happy. Okay, and here it is. So if I twist that around, you can see how beautiful that looks. And you can play around with the colours a bit more if you want, but that's basically it. And just make sure that you get those edges. So I just like to go and take any excess mica powder that might be lying around on my piece of paper, and I will just brush it around the edges, like so. And that's basically it. It's all finished. You could pop a hole in there using a cutter now if you wanted, but I prefer to drill afterwards to create a nice clean hole. And you'll just bake it on that piece of paper. Okay. Now as for this one, we're going to be doing something slightly different. I'm going to be using some Lumiere paints. And these are the ones that I am using. So this is Pearlescent Emerald, Halo Blue Gold, and Gold. Now I'm busy debating whether I should use those colours or if I should use Halo Pink Gold, Gold, and Metallic Russet. And so I did make the previous one green, so I'm thinking I should actually make this one more autumny. So we're going to start with, let's start with the Sunset Gold. I'm just going to put a little bit off to the side here. And let's have a look at the pink one as well. And you never put them directly onto your clay. You want to have them off to the side when you're doing this. There we are. It's not going to take much. Just take a bit. Start wiping that over the surface. And you can either drench it in paint or you can do a kind of dry brush effect like I'm doing on this side to just highlight the texture, or you can just kind of cover it in paint. And I want to cover it in paint, and if we need to we can antique it with some black paint later, or we can sand away a little bit of that paint to reveal the paint having antiqued the veins, which will be the opposite to the one that we just did. But just make sure when you're doing this that you don't have huge globs of paint. You want to cover it nicely, but you don't want to have a huge amount of paint sitting on the surface. You want to still be able to see the texture while you're doing this. Now I've started with the Halo Pink one, which seems to be a little bit more orange than pink. Okay, I'm just going to add a bit of that red. And I'm just going to continue blending these colours until I am happy. Remember, you can use any metallic paint you want. These ones have a really nice effect to them, but in general any metallic paints will work for this. Okay. And here is how it looks so far. So you could either leave it like that if you wanted, or you can try to get some of that paint off the surface. And you can wait until it's baked and sand it off, or you can use some 99% alcohol and a wet wipe to just see about rubbing off some. And you want to press very, very gently when you're doing this, because you can flatten that texture and you don't want to do that. What this is going to do is it's going to be a little bit more gentle than if you had used sandpaper. Sandpaper, you're going to get a very definite black and very definite veins, which might be something you want, but I like to see all my options first. So I will use my alcohol to see how it looks for the gentle effect, and if I like that, then I will leave it. But if I think I need it to be a bit stronger, then I can always go back and sand it. However, you can't do it the other way around. Once it's baked, you have to sand it. It's not going to come off with the alcohol. And I think I'm probably going to go with the sanding. I think it will look better. but by me doing this I'm also saved myself some work with the sanding because it's going to take less time. Okay, then I'm just going to take a piece of paper and I'm not burnishing it, I'm just going to rub it over the surface and that's just going to absorb some of that excess paint. Okay. Yeah, so I definitely do want to sand that at the end. Okay, so that's the paint one. We need to bake that and then give it a quick sand. And here's the one with the mica powder, which is my preferred method, but we will see how this one comes out. It's going to come out a little bit more rustic. But you want to bake these now for a full hour at Primo's recommended temperature, and you want to bake them on the paper, and then when they're done we'll be able to peel them off and we'll be able to see how they look. Okay, so here they are out of the oven. This one I've peeled off, and now if your clay is baked properly it should be nice and flexible. Okay, now if you're using Kato it's going to be a little less flexible obviously, and depending on what brand you're using that's going to vary, but on the whole it should be pretty flexible. And now when you peel it off it should come off pretty easily, just like that. Nice and clean, and you can see the sides are nice and clean as well. Okay, so this one is fine the way it is. I'm going to put that off to the side. We're going to tend to that later. For now we want to just give this one a quick sand. So just grab some 400 grit polishing papers. And just go in and start giving that a good sand. And it doesn't have to be perfect the whole way along, depending on what effect you want. If you want something that's really clean, then you want to really go at it with the sanding papers. But if you want something that's just got some black highlights to highlight that texture, then sand some areas and leave out others. But just in general, I want to just create some highlights. Okay, and so I'm pretty happy with that. Now you're just going to go up through your grits. So that was a 400, now we're going to 600, and this is just going to smooth it out. It's going to make it the black more shiny. It's just in general going to finish it off nicer, like so. And then just go through all of your grits until we've got a nicely finished off piece, and then I will show you what we're going to do next. There we are, all done. Now as an extra added bonus, you can give it a buff. This is completely optional, you do not have to do this. A very quick buff will just bring out almost like a leather finish to it. Hopefully you can see that light sheen. Okay, and just grab the back of a polishing paper and just quickly rub the back to clean it up. And that's a nice matte finish, so I'm not going to mess with that. Okay, so now we are ready to move on to our final step as far as finishing these off go. You want a resin mat, like so, and you want a resin that has a high dome quality, and typically I will use Lisa Pavelka's Magic Gloss for this. Things like Teresa Pandora's Deep Shine, or even the Chinese UV resin, this one. Those ones are a little bit too thin for this, so typically I would go with something that has a nice dome quality to it. And you just want to grab something like a skewer. I'm just going to find one that will work. Okay. And I'm just going to pour a bit of this onto another resin mat. And the reason I'm pouring it onto a resin mat is because it will be easily removed, whereas if I had put it on a tile it would cause some issues. So I've just got that off to the side there, and you just want to take a bit on your stick and just drop it onto the surface. So there it looks like a little dewdrop. Like so. Because we're trying to imitate dew. And you'll repeat with the other one. And what you can do is, if you want the dew to be a little bit larger, that one I want to be a little larger, you can take a bit more resin and add in some more. And after they're not perfectly round, that is quite fine. They don't have to be perfectly round. After all, they will slip and slide over the surface. You just want them to be domed. So I'll just continue adding until I'm happy with my finish. Okay, and here is how they look now that I've finished. So you can see the difference between the two. Personally, this one's shaping up to be my favourite, but I wanted to show you this variant just for those who might like a more rustic effect. But basically they both look really pretty. So now I'm going to put them in for about 15 minutes under the UV lamp so that these drops can cure and we can string our pendants. Okay, and here they are out of the UV light. So you can see how pretty that is now. Now you could leave it like that, of course, but I want to put some Renaissance wax on just to seal in the mica powder and paint. Now it is important that you put the resin on first and then the Renaissance wax. If you do it the other way around, the resin will not stick. So this is the Renaissance wax. I'm just going to take a little bit, and that's going to clog up that resin to begin with. Don't worry about that. Just rub that on like so. Do the same on the other one, and this will also bring out the colours a bit more, because they're a little dull for my liking, and I find Renaissance wax is the best way to go. You could dip this into Varathane if you wanted, but I find the Varathane dulls the resin quite considerably, whereas the Renaissance wax doesn't. I'm also just going to add it to the back to bring out that nice black colour. And then you can either use a nice soft cloth to burnish it, or you can use a buffing wheel. Buffing wheels do it the best, but soft cloths will burnish it quite well as well. Okay, so let's start with this one. And now, just something to point out, you want it on a fairly low speed. You don't want it on the highest you possibly could get with the polymer clay, just because the resin is a little bit more susceptible to burning or smudging than the polymer clay I found. So just put it, I like to put it on the number 4 setting on this, whereas usually when I'm buffing the polymer clay I put it on the number 6. And there we go. You can see that that's much shinier. It will have highlighted that black much nicer, and also it will have sealed in that mica powder. So I'm going to repeat with this one as well. There we are. And that will have just brought out the colours. You can see it's given it a nice sheen as well. And so now we are ready to string them. Now these would make really cute earrings as well, but today I'm going to be making pendants. So you'll just drill a hole right at the top of the leaf, wherever you want it to be. There we go. Just make sure to make that hole nice and clean. And after you've handled it, you might need to buff it again because you're pressing down on it fairly firmly, and that's gonna cause the clay to be a little bit dull. And now if your resin does pop up, that's fine, just remove that. And sometimes it does that when I am using the drill. That's something that's quite common, especially if it's in small drops like this. There we go. And that will have just brightened it up again. Then you're going to need some bales, and today I'm going to be using brass because I think that will look nice. You're just going to open up your bale. And that one's not the nicest one. Here's a better one. Just pop it through that hole and squish closed, and it should be able to move a bit but not too much. And repeat with the other one. Then when you have got that done, you should also have a piece of brass chain that is the correct length, whatever length that happens to be. Just going to slip that on. Okay, and then on one end we're going to attach our clasp, and we don't even need jump rings for this because the chain will open. And I'm going to be using a hook and eye clasp today. All you do, you can add a jump ring if you want, it's completely up to you. All you do is you just open up that bit of chain, slip on your clasp, and close it up again. And repeat on the other side, and then your necklace will basically be finished. And then you would repeat for your other piece. And there we go. That's just about it for the project. So you can see it was very easy. It doesn't take that long. That in total took me about an hour to make. And if you did more pendants alongside it, it would take probably the exact same amount of time to create it. So you can see how beautiful that looks. It's got a nice shine to it. It's got those cute little resin droplets, so it's a little bit more, got a bit more dimension to it. The back is quite nice as well. It's a nice matte finish. There was basically no sanding to do in this project, which is always a win. And keep in mind, you can use paint or you can use pastel, mica powder. You can see it's quite different depending on what you use. And also play around with the different colour of clay that you use. You will need to use mica powder if you're using black, but if you're using white, play around with pastels. That will also work quite well. You could even play around with alcohol inks as well. So play around with it, have some fun. Try out different leaves. They're all going to have a completely different pattern and shape. And let me know what you thought in the comments below. And if you would like to share photos of what you've made, please consider joining my group Jessama Tutorials Polymer Clay Community on Facebook. I'll provide a link to that. And if you would like more complex tutorials and would like to support this channel, please consider becoming a patron by joining my Patreon community on Patreon. I supply tutorials exclusive to Patreon every single month, about 3 or more every month, so consider joining up. And as always, I will see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.